MTG Scoundrels, it's in the cardboard. Ladies and gentlemen, scoundrels of all ages, welcome back to another episode of Modern Weekly. This week on the docket, we have Dimir Shadow versus Cabal Coffers. Shadow, of course, mainstay in the format. And Cabal Coffers, since Cabal Coffers itself was released and put into the format back in Modern Horizons 2, has become a staple as well, especially after some printings of cards like Orcish Bowmasters, Sheoldred the Apocalypse, etc. Looks like we have a fetch into a Thoughtseize. Speaking of, taking Sheoldred. Land and pass for the Coffers player. Land and pass for the Shadow player. Demolition field here, I believe. Taking out the Watery Grave. Both players searching for a basic, putting it onto the battlefield. Passing the turn here. Otawara for the land for turn and passing. Looks like another demolition field. Consider surveilling, drawing a card, then drawing for turn. Preordain. Scrying 2. One top, one bottom, drawing a card. Fetch land. Into a Thoughtseize. Taking the Sheoldred's Edict. Going to 13. Fetching. Finding a Watery Grave. Going to 10 to 20. And there is the Death Shadow. Death Shadow, of course, been a staple of the modern format since the deck really took it by storm back in the latter stages of the GP circuits before the pandemic. Looks like another activation of the Field of Ruin effect. There is a Cabal Coffers. Him passing. Wretched Sorrow. And looks like, that is a March of Wretched Sorrow in response to the Thoughtseize. Just showing lands in hand, bringing us to 8 to 25. Was overpaid to gain life. End step, Orcish Bowmasters, dealing a damage, creating an orc army. And looks like Fatal pushing the Orcish Bowmasters there when it attacks, so the orc army getting in for 1. Land for turn, pass. Attacking for 1. Fetch land. Scalding Tarn specifically. Attacking for 1 once again, going to 21 to 8. End step, fetching. Finding in Undercity Sewers, one of the new Surveil lands that came out in Murders of Karlov Manor. Lands that have really seen a lot of play here in the modern format. Bending and Dismember. Attacking for 1. And pushing the Death Shadow here. There's a Stubborn Denial. Taking care of that Fatal push. Keeping the Death Shadow alive. Untapping, drawing. Reliquary Tower. Passing the turn. And there is a March of Wretched Sorrow getting counterspelled. Passing the turn. Casting the Dress down, thus making the Death Shadow have 13/13 as its stats because it loses all other abilities. Attacking game over. Shadow taking game 1 here. Thank you all so much for watching us here at MTG Scoundrels. If you enjoy our content, please be a friend, tell a friend, like and subscribe. All the good stuff. Interesting sideboarding decisions here. The Coffers build really is more of a control deck with a bunch of removal spells and then heavy hitters such as the One Ring and Karn the Great Creator. So the Shadow list as currently constructed, probably bringing in maybe a tad more removal. Probably not too much though. They already have Drown in the Lock. Already have Fatal Push. Be interesting to see what they ultimately do here. Of course, we have Will here on Dimir Shadow. Individual's been to a couple of RCs himself. And on Coffers, we have Isaac, friend in the community. Pops in, is usually on some sort of mono black build, depending on the format. Definitely check in the description below for deck lists and timestamps for the individual games. And check out our friends over at Arcane Artistry. They are friends of the channel, occasionally on the channel, make tokens. Their link in the description below. Moving on to game 2 here. Alright, both keeping 7. Swamp go. Fetching. Probably into a watery grave here. Yep, and into a Thoughtseize. Looks like all lands, a March of Wretched Sorrow, and a Grizzlebrand. Taking the march here, bringing us to 15 to 20. Passing the turn. Another swamp and passing. Scalding Tarn and pass. Looks like a Field of Ruin there. Passing, end step, cracking. Finding a Watery Grave untapped, going to 12. Death Shadow currently available to be a 1/1. And there is an Orcish Bowmasters. Still on their end step. Dealing 1 damage, bringing us to 12 to 19. Island for turn. Attacking for 2. Bringing us to 12 to 17. And passing. End step, Field of Ruin, blowing up one of the Watery Graves. Both players grabbing a basic. Untapping, drawing. Looks like a Cabal Coffers. And passing the turn. End step. Consider. Surveil. Drawing and then drawing for turn. Playing a Watery Grave. Going to 10. Attacking for 2 here. Untapping, drawing. There is a Blast Zone. Solid answer to Death Shadows. Attacking for 2. Bringing us to 10 to 13. And there is a Murktide Regent. End step. Orcish Bowmasters killing the opposing Orcish Bowmasters. Untapping and drawing. Looks like that Murktide Regent is a 5/5. Swamp for turn. Making 4 mana here. Casting a Karn the Great Creator. Tough decision here. Looks like letting the Karn resolve. Finding Ensnaring Bridge, casting it, getting countered by Counterspell. Tacking in for 5 here, bringing us to 10 to 8. Letting the Karn stay on the battlefield. Looks like one of those is an Urborg. Though, no, that's just another Coffers, pardon me. There's so many arts of these cards recently. Karn ticking down. Interesting decision here. Knowing that the Shadow player has Orcish Bowmasters in the list, probably not finding the One Ring. If your hand has just been lands, you're probably trying to find something to deal with a Murktide. Yep, there is a Cityscape Leveler. So even if it gets countered, it can come back from the graveyard, which is very relevant. So there's 4. 6 into 8. Casting Cityscape Leveler. That'll be countered. So here's an interesting moment. That was a missed cast trigger on the Cityscape Leveler. Could have still dealt with that Murktide Regent. Remember your triggers, everyone. Magic the Gathering is a hard game. Looks like, yep, 1 coming in at Karn. Murktide Regent coming in at the life total, bringing us to 10 to 3. And there is a Death Shadow. Death Shadow, only a 3/3 here. Land for turn. Five mana. Going up to 8 mana. Well, there's a Grizzlebrand. 7/7 lifelinker. That'll get you there. Interesting spot here for the Shadow player. Passing the turn. There's a land for turn. Looks like making 6 mana, using 4 of it, casting Karn the Great Creator. That'll be Stubborn Denialed. Tough decisions. Still 2 mana floating. Never mind, mana no longer floating. Attacking in with a Grizzlebrand. Swinging the life totals from 10 to 3 to 3 to 10. The Death Shadow's now a 10/10. There are 2 blockers here. There is a Fatal Push for the Orcish Bowmasters. Untapping, drawing. Drown in the Lock for the token. Attacking in. And there it is. Putting mana into the coffers. Not that that really needed to be done here, but blowing up the blast zone. And that, scooping it up from there, killing the Death Shadow. Grizzleband was going to swing in for the lethal damage. And this match is all tied up. Once again, thank you all for watching us here at MTG Scoundrels. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy our content. Let us know in the comments below, specifically what videos you would like to see in terms of what decks you want to see, what they're coming up against. What are you guys excited for in Modern Horizons 3? I know I'm pretty excited for all the Eldrazi stuff. There's a 3-mana enchantment that was spoiled. That is going to be a House and Affinity. Moving into Game 3 here. It's kind of going to be a lot of the same. Shadow's just going to have to get it over the line. Really is kind of a tough matchup. You have a control deck on one end and more of a tempo deck on the other. Shadow list is definitely going to have to figure out how to overcome these Grizzlebrands that are being dropped. But either way, we're seeing some powerful magic. Starting off here, going to 15. 3 from the fetch and the shock, and 2 from the Thoughtseize. A lot of options here. Looks like taking the sheoldred once again. Sheoldred really messes with the Shadow game plan. Consistent damage off of drawing cards that you're not controlling is pretty rough for the Dimir Shadow list. Polluted Delta, passing the turn. Another swamp and passing. Fetching once again. Finding an Undercity Sewers. Only going to 14. Somewhat shocking. But once again, it's losing life on their terms. Speaking of, there's a watery grave. Going to 12. And passing. Another Field of Ruin type effect. There's a watery grave going to 10. And there is a 3/3 Death Shadow. And another 3/3 Death Shadow. There's a Fatal Push dealing with 1. Untapping, drawing. Land for turn. Consider on the end step. Looks like in response, we have an Orcish Bowmaster. So we'll be dealing 2 damage to the Shadow player. Off of the draw of the Consider. Surveilling, putting it to hand. Drawing for turn. Death Shadow currently a 5/5. There is a Preordain. Scrying 2. Looks like taking a damage from the draw, thanks to Orcish Bowmasters. Shadow now a 6/6. And there is a Break the Ice. Getting rid of the demolition field. Interesting decision there. Shadow stumbling in. Probably a decision of wanting to take the damage or not. just to keep their board presence here. Looks like decides to take the 6, bringing us to 7 to 14. Attacking in for 3 with the Orc army, bringing us to 4 to 14. It has now a 9/9 Death Shadow. Untapping, drawing. Attacking in. Bowmaster's blocking. Casting another Death Shadow. This is quite the spot, staring down 2 9/9s. Difficult decision. That is the thing about playing against Death Shadow. You always feel like you're just about ready to kill them, but in reality they have 2 9/9s staring down at you. And you're just as much on the brink of losing the match. There is the One Ring. Honestly, the card that really makes this Coffers list go. Giving protection. Untapping, drawing. Passing the turn, end step, activating the One Ring, drawing a card. Taking 1, bringing us to 4 to 13. Still have to figure out a way to deal with those 9/9s. Sounds like a broken record, but you gotta do it. Adding mana. Playing a Sheoldred the Apocalypse. There's a counterspell. A Fatal Push. That'll deal with one of them. Letting them untap. Still got a 3/3 on the board. to block. Death Shadow attacking. Orc Army blocking. Scalding Tarn and passing. Taking a damage off the one ring, going to 12. And there is a blast zone. Cracking the fetch. Finding an island, going to 3. Untapping and drawing. There's a preordain. Scrying 2. Both to the bottom, drawing a card. Attempting to attack in for 10 here. Blowing up the blast zone to deal with the Death Shadow. There is a Murktide Regent. Five spells being delved, making it an 8/8. Coffers player, activating the One Ring, drawing 2 cards. Upkeep, losing 2 life. Off the One Ring. Land for turn. Activating the Cabal Coffers. Adding a bunch of mana. Casting a Damnation. That's one way to get rid of a Murktide. Untapping, drawing, casting Consider. In response, Orcish Bowmasters. In response, or ETB on the stack, specifically. Dress down. Drawing a card for Consider, drawing a card for Dress down. In the opposite order, actually, because resolving things on the stack in opposite order. Surveilled, kept it on top, put it in hand. There's a preordain. Scry 2. One top, one bottom, drawing. Passing the turn. Taking 2 off the One Ring, bringing us to 3 to 8. Orcish Bowmasters attacking in. Bringing us to 2-8. Activating the Cabal Coffers. Playing a replacement ring. The One Ring with 2 counters here. Being sacrificed. With the last 2 and 2 more, channeling Takenuma. Land for turn. And passing. There's a Sheoldred the Apocalypse. And it is countered. Mana still floating. Activating the One Ring, drawing a card. Attacking for 1. Drown in the Loch, targeting the Orcish Bowmasters. Playing a new Urborg. Passing the turn. Untap, drawing, and passing there for the Shadow player. Taking 1 off the One Ring, bringing us to 2-7. Activating the coffers. And there is a Grizzlebrand. Drawing for turn. Passing the turn. Taking 1 off of the ring here. Not that it's likely to matter. Attacking in for 7. And that'll be game. Match going to the Cabal Coffers player. Thank you all so much for watching us here at MTG Scoundrels. Catch us again next week for more of the modern format. We all appreciate your time over here. Like and subscribe to be a friend, tell a friend. And we will see you all next week.